How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another video. This is obviously my spoiler review for Batman. This is my most anticipated movie, maybe since Avengers Endgame, and I gotta say that I did like it. I didn't like it as much as I wanted to, or as much as I thought I would, but I definitely liked it. I had a lot of problems with it, but I also had a lot of positives with it as well. So we'll start out with just sort of my thoughts on the Batman as a character in this movie. The narration at the beginning I thought was really cool, and I loved sort of seeing it over the crime in the city. I thought that was really great. I think that Robert Pattinson does a great job as Batman, and I really liked seeing him as a detective, though this sort of brings in one of my big problems with the movie, is they did spend a lot of time on him being a detective, yet he does solve riddles in like 5 seconds. He's way too invincible in this movie, and for year 2, they try to shove it down your throat that he is year 2 when he falls out of the sky, but also on the other hand, I didn't really feel like there was anything threatening Batman throughout this entire movie, but I did like seeing him and Gordon together. I thought that was really cool. He was also very menacing, and he had a great Batman voice. I think that he has the potential in his trilogy to become the best Batman. I think I'm still leaning on Affleck, and then maybe Pattinson and Bale, but Pattinson and Bale could really swap any day. I also would have liked to see him more being Bruce in this movie. There was not a lot of Bruce, but I also didn't really care for what we got of his Bruce. I thought it was really fascinating at the beginning to see sort of a bloodshot eye, makeup running Batman, and I would have rather see a completely different Bruce, or they fully lean into what they were doing in this instead of doing kind of a weird mix between the two. And I didn't love the Bruce part. That was one of my biggest problems with this. As for the other characters, Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman was one of my favorite parts of this movie. Her scenes were really great. She was very well developed throughout the movie. I would have liked to know what there was with that relationship between her and Annika. It wasn't very clear. It kind of felt romantic at some times, and it also kind of felt like she was like an older sister figure to her or something. I wasn't really sure. The nightclub undercover scene was great. It was one of my favorite scenes from this movie. I'll bring that up a little bit later. And I did think that there wasn't a lot of chemistry in this movie. That was kind of some of my problems. I didn't think that chemistry was huge between whether it was Batman and the villains, or Batman and Alfred, or even Batman and Gordon. I thought Batman and Gordon and Catwoman and Batman were two of the best chemistry in the movie, which was really good. Speaking on Alfred and Gordon, I thought Gordon was solid enough. A lot of his lines were just him reading riddles to the camera, but that's fine. I hope that they do use him more in the future. Alfred was criminally underused in this, and it seemed like they didn't know what they wanted to do with him. They try to make him really cool and a lot younger than usual. He trained Batman, and he decodes something in this movie, but then is only there for maybe a half an hour total in the movie of his name being brought up or scenes with him. Otherwise, he goes mostly unmentioned throughout the whole movie and is missing for quite a while. And I just think that Michael Caine was a better Alfred, though I'm trying not to compare this to The Dark Knight, even though I definitely will later. And I don't know, I was kind of disappointed with how they did Alfred, and I hope that he gets a lot more to do in the future movie. Alright, so the villains. Every scene with Penguin was amazing, and he was in most of my favorite scenes from this movie. I thought that it was just a very well done performance by Colin Farrell, and an absolutely insane performance. I thought Carmine Falcone was fine. A lot of people really love him. I kind of thought that he basically just played a mobster that we've seen in any other crime movie, but he definitely was menacing, and being Selina's father did surprise everyone I was with, and the story with the Waynes was interesting, so I loved his dynamic with Bruce when they had that one scene in the movie. Very intense, and I thought John Turturro did a solid job here. Riddler is a weird one. He's a very interesting villain, and I absolutely loved him in the first 2 hours of the movie. I thought he was amazing. He was terrifying, very threatening. All of his kill scenes were really good, but it sort of started to fall flat for me. Not completely flat, but it sort of started to fall a little bit for me once we get to the interrogation. Unfortunately, once we got to the interrogation scene, something sort of felt off. But I did love when he thanks Batman for everything, though. That was really cool. And all the villains in this were absolutely brutal, which I really liked. And then I thought the action scenes were solid enough. Most of the really good action scenes were in the trailer, which was kind of unfortunate. I mean, the gang beatdown, stopping Penguin, the automatic weapons in the dark scene, and the nightclub scene were all kind of my favorite scenes from this movie. And almost all of those, 3 out of 4 of those, were in the trailer, which is kind of disappointing. I wanted a little bit more brutality. It sort of felt like a tease. I don't like saying that movies should be rated R because a rating change wouldn't really make a movie better, but I do think that this movie might have been better if it was slightly more brutal. I will get to how good Gotham was in just a second, but I almost think it would have matched how gruesome Gotham is as a city if they had gone a little bit more brutal and not cut away from certain scenes. It just sort of felt like a tease. But Gotham City was maybe the best part of this entire movie. It was incredibly well done. I loved the feel of it. I just thought that it was very, very well done and easily the best Gotham they've ever done. I also thought that the score and cinematography to this movie were awesome. The sound design was really, really great. I just thought the technical aspects to this movie were really hitting on all measures. Unfortunately, I sort of felt like this movie was devoid of a lot of emotion. I think that there was some decently well done emotion at the end when he saves the kid, and also really any scene with him and Catwoman was very well done. But otherwise, I just... a lot of it kind of fell flat for me. I think that there was supposed to be this really sort of intense scene when Alfred wakes up and Bruce is all like, why'd you lie to me my whole life? And instead of feeling emotion, I sort of didn't really care as much because we hadn't seen much of Alfred. And also I could not get out of my head that he sat there that entire time just for him to wake up and instantly say, you lied to me. But I don't know. That was kind of just maybe a little bit of a nitpick. I also loved the style of this film, which I really should have talked about along with that score and cinematography. But I thought it's one of the most stylistic superhero movies I've ever seen, and I really liked that. I really dig the first 2 hours. I thought the last hour was quite a big step down compared to the first two. I did not like the flood thing. I was not a fan. I just thought that it didn't fit with the rest of the movie. But the first 2 hours, very well paced, and I even think that the last hour was pretty well paced. But for a 3-hour-long movie, it's perfect pacing. I was never bored. That's really some of the criticisms I've heard from people, is that it's too long. I didn't think it was too long. I just didn't like what they did at the end. So I'm kind of all over the place on this movie, as you can tell. For every negative, I have like 3 more positives and then another big negative. I think I'm at a 7.5 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10. It might crack my top 3 Batman movies, but it definitely wasn't as amazing as I thought it would be. I really loved it while watching it, but afterwards I just couldn't help but pull apart things I didn't like. But then when I woke up this morning, I was starting to think about a lot of things I do like. So this might be a movie that desperately needs a rewatch, so that will be interesting. Thank you all for watching. Tell me your thoughts on this movie down below. I promise you I didn't dislike this movie, although I have criticisms. I just sort of feel like all of the positive things have been talked about endlessly, so I wanted to sort of share my 2 cents on some of the negatives I had for it. But again, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and see you guys.